I I don't have any direct background in this. I'm really a hacker who loves to learn and loves to research and loves psychedelics. So, like, this is a bit of a tangent, but why does it suck so much for some people? Like, that's kind of weird. Um, and my answer, it's taken me a while to come up with a hypothesis, but my hypothesis is that it's most likely a combination of a weak expression of several genes in the P450 enzyme series, specifically CYP2B6, possibly 3A4, maybe some 2D6 and 2C9. So what are those, you might ask? Well, on the subject of drug metabolism, I'd like to introduce to you the cytochrome P450 enzymes brought to you by your cytochrome P450 genes. Basically, these are this collection of enzymes that are produced by these genes, and they each break down different what's called substrates or drugs. There's about a dozen of these enzymes that are responsible for breaking down over 70 to 80% of all drugs, at least the ones that we're aware of, right? Different enzymes will produce different metabolites from the same drug. So take the same drug, different enzymes will produce different drugs, different metabolites from it. The same enzyme can also produce different metabolites from the same drug. So there's a ton of variance here. And then on top of that, some of these enzymes work together to break down different parts of the same drug. So if you imagine a molecule as like a building, right? It's not all made of the same stuff. It's not like this building is made of wood and glass and metal and some plastic and just all kinds of things. If you were to break it down, not just knock it down, but break it down, decompose it, you would need different strategies for each material. And this is why there are different enzymes often for different parts of a drug. So what happens is as this drug is being broken down, it gets broken down into metabolites that may or may not be slightly more or slightly less potent, slightly more or slightly less toxic, or have slightly different effects. So you never really know what you're going to get as you're metabolizing a drug. This turns out to be especially true for dissociatives, specifically PCP and often ketamine. What I believe and what I've read, what may be going on here is a shortage of CYP2B6. This particular gene is rare. So here's a basic breakdown of the different enzymes and how what role they have in breaking down, how do I put this? What percentage of drugs are broken down by which enzyme? So 3A4 is the most common, followed by 2D6. 2D6 breaks down most classic psychedelics, and most people have no shortage of it. But even if they do, 3A4 and 2C8 can do some of the work that 2D6 can't. But then you get down to CYP2B6, and it only breaks down about 3% of drugs, and it's not very prevalent. As you can imagine, if that's your workload, if you only have 3% of the load, there doesn't need to be that much of you, right? So it's not very common, or it's not highly populated in the liver, and some people are missing it entirely. So for those people, it's very likely. So for those people, a dissociative experience can go from lasting about 3 hours to lasting upwards of 36 hours. And I thought that sounded really extreme. I thought 36 hours, holy shit. Until I spoke to two people, one of which did a bump of ketamine and was tripping for 2 months. Yeah. So I'm paying for his 23andMe, and I'm going to figure out what's going on. Like, how is that possible? Because he knows another woman who also did a little bit of K, tripped for 3 weeks. So yeah, there's some really interesting stuff going on here.
And then coming up in October, we've got a one-day conference with Dennis McKenna and more. We are currently open for sponsorships for both the Stamets and McKenna events. So if you've got a business that would like to support our community, a dispensary, a glass store, a naturopath, anything like that, we are currently looking for sponsors. Let's keep Portland visionary.